it's really never been more dangerous to be a war correspondent, because journalists in the combat zone, now we're facing not just rockets or bullets, we've also become targets. I lost my eye in an ambush in Sri Lanka in the Civil War. I'd gone to the northern Tamil area where journalists were banned and found an unreported humanitarian disaster. I felt that risk was worth it. As I was smuggled back across the internal border, a soldier launched a grenade at me, and the shrapnel got my eye and my chest as well. Just 2 weeks ago, I was in Afghanistan, and I had coffee with a photographer friend, João Silva. And we talked about the fear that one feels, and you kind of have to contain when you're patrolling. I was going on an embed, as João was as well, with American Armed Forces, and you go through these fields and these villages, and the kind of fear of putting one foot in front of the other, and you sort of steel yourself each time, thinking you're going to step on a mine. And that expectation, very often expectation of a blast or expectation of a shot, can be the stuff of nightmares. And sadly, 2 days after our meeting, João stepped on a mine, and he lost both of his legs at the knee. Many of you now must be asking yourselves, or is it worth the cost? And in lives, in pain, and it's not just for us, but also to families and friends. My answer then and now is that it is worth it, I believe. So those are my thoughts. To, I hope, what will be colleagues in the future. Any questions?
There are many talks during the war coverage. What kind of information you can deliver and what kind of information you can't. And I'm interested in how do you filter and whether you filter this information.
So I believe that you have to report independently of whether or not it is in the interest of your country, interest of America. Now, you know, there are some times when you're in a military situation and reporting something can endanger people. You know, then I would say no. But if it's in terms of the political interest of your country in the world, you have to report that. Or just don't do the job. I mean, if you're comfortable with that, you should not be a journalist.
Have you ever been told not to say something? Have you ever been told by the U.S. government, for example?
Not to say something all the time.
Just for the record, we did not have that conversation downstairs. I think part of your job is to make me uncomfortable and to ask me hard questions. And I find often in Georgia that I wish the questions I got were harder, even if it made me have to work harder, because that suggests to me either one of two things. That people aren't thinking enough about the issues here, which I doubt, or they don't feel comfortable enough or secure enough to ask those hard questions. And that concerns me. Some of us have talked about that, and we'll keep talking about that, but I would encourage you to at least when I'm up here, whether it's today or some other time, ask hard questions.
In terms of WikiLeaks, what is your assessment of all this idea and of the information that has come out from it? Is that what journalists would do or not?
And some of what was put out on WikiLeaks unnecessarily damaging. I think there's an absolute hard and fast rule. If it is cover-up of essential information, it should be exposed. But where I find it's kind of a gray area is a lot of the cables that came out don't really expose anything, but they're people speaking, well, like our friend the diplomat here, speaking openly and in fact about things that are important in perhaps the American government's understanding of the situation. They're not really facts, but that means that there will be fewer open, frank conversations because they might leak out. And I find that kind of damaging to an understanding of the world. that's my opinion. So I wouldn't have published some of those. But colleagues would agree with me. So I would say if it's a fact that needs to get out, yes. If it's what you have to do, what we do as colleagues. I mean, if I'm sitting around the dinner table sort of throwing ideas out, you know, this and that with fellow journalists, I probably don't, I'm not hiding something, but I don't really want that, because I might just be testing out an idea. I don't want that out to the entire world. So that's a rather long-winded way of saying that. Answering that.
You also would not want to see your raw conversations with sources that you've protected out there in the public domain either.
Exactly. Exactly.